I think it's probably safe to say that most of us at some point have sat through a performance in which the singer gave us a technically perfect performance, and yet we found ourselves feeling like we wanted more from that singer. Something was lacking. And then other times we may have sat through performances that weren't perfectly executed, technically speaking, in which the singer wasn't the most brilliant vocal technician. And yet, we were deeply moved by the performance. And what determines whether or not the audience or the listener is going to be deeply moved by the songs that we're singing is really our ability to dig really deep into ourselves and to really connect with our music on a deeply personal and emotional level, and then bring those emotions out and convey them to our audiences. So recently, in a singing community on Facebook for singing teachers, another teacher asked how she could get her students to sing with more emotion. And I feel, as a singing teacher, that there is very little that I can do to help my students sing with emotion. Now let me explain. My primary responsibility as a singing teacher is to help my students, to guide them, to give them the tools to be able to free up their instruments so that they can then express themselves vocally in any way they desire, any way they imagine. But even if that singer has the technical facility and has the functional freedom in place, if he or she cannot connect with the music and the lyrics on a deeply personal and emotional level, his or her performance will always be a little bit flat, a little bit lackluster. And sometimes singers are encouraged to sort of tackle this problem of not singing with enough emotion from a very superficial level, sort of manipulating facial expressions and choreographing gestures and movements and plotting where along the vocal phrase he or she's going to use a given sound or dynamic. And while we do sometimes need to do a little bit of this prep work and really think through the technical aspects and how we want to use our voices, ultimately what we need to do in order to create a really sincere expression of our emotion is to dig a lot deeper and to find that place where we're actually feeling that emotion in a sincere way. Otherwise, we're always going to have this sort of two-dimensional kind of flat performance that fails to move the audience. So one of my favorite things to do, the first thing that I do when I'm trying to get to that point where I can really make a genuine, authentic connection with the song and the lyrics, is I analyze the lyrics. I go through every single vocal phrase and treat it in very much the same way that I would a piece of literature. I look at the words, I look at the lyricist's choice of words. Well, why did he or she choose that particular word? What does it mean? We try to figure out what that character is trying to convey with the words that he or she is choosing or using. We analyze it, we think about it. So the first thing that we do is we identify the emotion being experienced. We label it, we give it a name. And how do we do this? Well, again, we look through the song lyrics and we analyze them and we think about what's going on. What is the story that led up to this moment in which the character, the individual, is singing this song? Now, I sing a lot of musical theater, and in musical theater, that's a lot easier to do because there's always some sort of narrative, some sort of story that has led up to that moment when the singer is singing that song, right? It's easy to do, but in pop and rock, we don't always have that luxury of knowing exactly what was going on in the lyricist's life or in his or her mind. And so we sort of infer a story. We think about, well, what is this person talking about? It might be a relationship. It sounds like a breakup. And then what we do is we personalize and internalize that emotion. So we go through and we think, well, have I ever gone through this same thing or something very similar? It doesn't necessarily mean we're always going to be able to connect with the song situationally. It doesn't mean that we've always gone through the exact same situation. If that were the case, I think that there would be a lot of songs that we wouldn't really be able to sing in a very sincere or authentic way. So what we do is we personalize it. We take a look at the song lyrics and we think about a time in our own lives when we may have experienced something similar, or when we've actually experienced that same emotion. Now, we haven't always gone through the exact same situation, but we've experienced the same emotions. Emotions are universal amongst human beings, right? Those are things that we share, that we have in common. Now, if you'd like me to in a separate video, I can walk you through my whole process of taking apart a song and really digging into the deeper emotional aspects of it, identifying the emotion, analyzing what the lyricist is actually trying to say, and then exploring the actual emotion behind it. And that's the second part of how I go about learning to sing with more emotion. I start to take the emotion and I explore it in all of its different characters, we'll say. We start to explore how we go about expressing that emotion. Now, one of the things that I love to do is I go through an exercise with my method acting students, and I kind of do this a little bit, a modified version of it for myself. I'll take a bunch of lines, spoken lines, and I'll stick them in a hat, and individually the student comes up and draws a line or two from the hat. And each lesson, each class, will explore a different emotion. So let's say today's emotion that we're exploring fully in this class is anger. And the student draws from the hat the line, "I can't believe you just did that. You're always so selfish." So we have that really loud, rageful, explosive expression of anger. "I can't believe you just did that! You're always so selfish!" And then on the other end, we have that really quiet, seething kind of anger where you know the individual is angry from his or her tone, but the voice doesn't really get louder. "I can't believe you just did that. You're always so selfish." Right? Where they're sort of talking through their teeth, they're gritting, right? And then we have a bunch of other expressions of anger in between those two extremes. And we need to explore those fully with our voices. We need to look at how we express anger individually as well. And then what we do is we use our natural expressions of those emotions, our natural speech patterns, our natural inflections in our voices, and how our voices sort of color themselves when we're expressing that emotion in a given way. And we infuse that in our singing. Now, we don't do this in some artificial, manufactured way. We let the emotion first guide us. We let that emotion guide our phrasing. We let that emotion guide how we're going to color the vocal phrase. And when we do that, we find ourselves digging much deeper into the emotion, and that emotion becomes a lot more sincerely expressed. So in order to really move an audience with our voices, we need to get beyond the superficial and dig a lot deeper. We need to really connect with the music and the lyrics on a deeply emotional and personal level. That's the only way that we're really going to be able to convey that sincerity in our expression of that emotion. We can't fake it because the audience is a little bit too smart for that. The audience will see right through those gestures and the movements and stuff that we sort of choreograph and plan out. And if we're not doing that, we're going to be sort of trying to manufacture that, and we're going to be trying to sort of manipulate the emotions of the audience in an insincere kind of way. The audience will see right through that, and our performance will always seem as though it's a little bit two-dimensional, a little bit superficial. All right, if you're interested in having me record a second video on this topic of how to sing with more emotion, and I'll actually show you how I go about analyzing song lyrics, a song that I'm actually working on right now, and how I go about exploring the full spectrum of a given emotion vocally, please let me know in the comments section. In the meantime, if you really like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up And also, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel so that you'll be notified every time I post new videos. Thank you so much for watching.